I'm really excited to speak to you. Everyone, this is Lily. We met in Thailand, in Chiang Mai. She's a very active person in the digital nomad community, especially in Chiang Mai. So anyone who's planning to come to Chiang Mai, want to settle in or have any question, she's the person to go for. We didn't speak much when we met, but I would like to hear your story, share it with everyone. Tell us, how did you start?
I've been working remotely in some capacity since about like 2013. At the time, I was in London, working at a startup there. I moved there for grad school and stuck around a little bit because I caught the startup bug. And then I was just really excited because like taking the tube into the city every morning was not always fun, and there would be like tube strikes, and I thought it was just so awesome that I could just stay at home and just like I would like start working from home in the morning, and then after rush hour I'd be like, okay, I'm gonna have a leisurely breakfast, get dressed, shower, take my time, and then I'd show up at the office at like 10 or 11. I've already done some work that morning. It felt really good. Then I hang out with my colleagues. And so that was my very first taste of like working remotely. While I was at that startup, I took a break with a colleague of mine who was a developer, and we spent like 2 weeks in Thailand together. And so we were coming back to Chiang Mai, which is my hometown. And he was like, "Oh yeah, I've been wanting to go to Chiang Mai because it's where people go to be digital nomads." And I was like, "What is this thing? Like, I'd never heard of it before." Yeah, so he was the one who kind of introduced me to this concept that there are all these like remote workers, developers mostly, who were like going to my hometown to work online. I think that was like kind of my first taste of it. And then I professionally, I wandered around a little bit. I was in New York for a while, and I was just very like burnt out, depressed, like life like sucked. I was anxious all the time. Startups can be really challenging, and I was super burnt out. Along a very indirect path, I ended up deciding I wanted to move back to Thailand because this is where I've always been happiest. And I had a job where I was able to be remote. The entire team was distributed. At that time, I was working for like a legal tech company. And so part of the deal was that once a week, I would have to wake up at 4 a.m. to be on the call with the developers. So I did that for a little while before I eventually went to a coding boot camp, and then left that job to start freelancing. And I tried to, set up shop doing web development and business consulting, and then I sort of found myself here. But I'll pause there for the story. But yeah, that's sort of how I got into the whole digital nomad scene. But the funny thing is, I've been location dependent for a while, but I don't actually like digital nomad that much, and especially now that I've got a 1-year-old, traveling is just a little bit more challenging.
Definitely, definitely. When you have kids, it's much harder. And personally, I prefer to slow madding instead of being
Yeah.
on the move. It's much easier. But speaking of that, you have really worked in different fields and
Mm.
experience. Then you said you jumped on a coding boot camp and then you start to
Yeah.
do freelancing. That's very cool. So can you tell us more on why you decided to do this shift
Yeah.
in career? What leads you there?
Yeah. So I did my undergraduate degree in anthropology because I was always just interested in cultures, and I actually had this dream that I wanted to, save the world, work in NGOs and things like that. And then I realized that people who do that line of work like don't make any money. The organizations have no budgets, and I was like, wait a minute, like how does this whole thing work? Like how do you actually like not struggle? So I sort of got turned on to the idea of social enterprises, and then because of that, I decided to go to business school. And business school, I did a master's in like innovation, entrepreneurship, and management, and I touched on a lot of different skill sets there, but I didn't really get like proper training on how to do anything. So here I've got 2 degrees, and I'm just like, what can I actually do? It's always a funny thing. People ask, like, oh, how do you start becoming a digital nomad? As if there's like a degree or a certification that will allow you to do it. But really, it's just like the rest of your career. It's like what do I actually know how to do? What am I good at? What could I learn? And like, how do I sort of figure out something that will sustain me, that will be a career, that will be financially rewarding and allows me to be remote. For me, I went the startup path, and startups tend to be a little more flexible than like big companies, right? So I was kind of early to that remote work game, and I managed to like keep that up. Yeah, like I told you, those 4 a.m. calls like really weren't working for me.
Yeah.
So I thought like, okay, like if I'm going to be a little bit more independent, maybe I can do consulting and build up my own business. And so that's why I decided to do the coding bootcamp. It was with the Institute of Code in Bali. So it was like about like a 2-week coding bootcamp that we just did front end web development. And so in my startup years, I picked up a lot of different skills, mostly in like marketing, account management, and customer support. Because I was always like really nerdy, I always wanted to talk to the developers and like websites and like product management, and I wanted to learn more about that, And so I dabbled in things like related to front-end web development, and finally decided like, okay, on top of my marketing skills, on top of my writing skills, like if I can do like web development, then I can come to someone with like a whole like consulting package, right? And so that was my motivation. But then I had no idea how to sell my services, so that was like a struggle for a while.
So wow, so you shifted to become more like entrepreneurial, right?
Definitely.
And how is it going so far?
Well these days. I'm pretty happy with what I do for work now, but it certainly hasn't been a smooth journey. I'm a really bad employee, like really bad. And if you tell me to do something that I think is a bad idea, like I have a very hard time following instructions. So I tend to do well in roles that like offer a lot of autonomy, but anytime there's like, no, Lily, this is your job, just focus into your job, I'm the worst. And so, freelancing, being more independent, being more entrepreneurial, and being able to like choose my own clients, choose my own projects has been a better fit. Like it's definitely hard. Like there have been so many times where I've been tempted to like go for full-time jobs because it'd just be nice to be like, this is someone else's business. Like I can just check out. I don't really care that much. But the truth is I'm probably just the kind of personality that always cares too much anyways. So I might as well just lean into that. Yeah, maybe it's because of my anthropology background, and I want that idea of like wanting to save the world. I'm just like relentlessly optimistic. I'm like, but we can fix this. We can make this better, right? Like, why is no one creating a solution for this? And so once I sort of built up my skill set around that and got some more experience of like how to take a project from like 0 to 1, how to like work with people, rounding up my skills, confidence has a lot to do with it. It's just like, if that thing doesn't exist, like I can create it, right? And so that sort of led me to, a couple of things I've done in the past. Like I when I moved back to Chiang Mai, I really wanted to support startups, but I felt like there wasn't like any resources to connect like local entrepreneurs with like the digital nomad and like expat community. And so I was like, okay, I gathered with some friends and we co-founded the Chiang Mai Entrepreneurship Association and started running meetups to sort of like, okay, if this thing, this platform, this like network doesn't exist, let's create it. Cool. And sort of, I think that was probably one of the first things I really did that was like really scary for me at the time, of like creating an association. I'm glad I had co-founders to sort of deal with my like imposter syndrome, but that was kind of the start of a lot of different things for me that sort of led me to where I am now.
This is amazing. Yeah, congratulations. I didn't know about this. There was always this saying that Chiang Mai is like the digital nomad hub. It's like the capital of digital nomadism. And it's your hometown. Why they call it the digital nomad hub? What's your take on that?
Well, because I've seen Chiang Mai through different phases, right? I remember before leaving for grad school, so grad school was like 2013, there was this dude, Cody McKibben, who I knew was leading these groups, kind of like a precursor to a remote year. He was leading these groups of remote workers to like travel for like, do like trips for like 3 months in different places. And Chiang Mai was one of the destinations, so kind of like a precursor to that whole thing. think the reason that Chiang Mai was popular is because it was already a great destination for like expats of different types. Like I moved back one phase right after I graduated university because I just wanted to sort of, I didn't want to be living in the US. I wanted to be somewhere else. And so I thought like I could teach English, I could do these things. You know, it was a place where I felt like reasonably confident that I could like find work and opportunities. And so there was a lot of other people like in that same boat, you know, it was really fun. Like I had a lot of friends who were English teachers, journalists, NGO workers, lots of like young, fun people, lots of activities to do. It's a great city to live in. The cost of living is like really affordable. So all these things, Chiang Mai already had all these things going for it. And the telecom infrastructure in Thailand is pretty good. And it's like, it's a great travel destination, right? So all these things sort of came together and I think helped like make Chiang Mai like a popular place. And the thing is like digital nomads like want to go what other digital nomads are. Like I'm a moderator for the Chiang Mai Nomad Girls Facebook group, and like half of the people who like request to apply, like when they say their reason is like they're looking for like-minded people. It's just really funny that, you know, when you're living this lifestyle, people really want to be with other folks. And so as soon as you have a couple of hotspots, you know, pop up and like a lot of that word of mouth spreads, right? Like it just really cements a reputation. Like, so, and I think Chiang Mai was one of the earlier ones to sort of pop onto people's radar, and so it's just sort of stayed there ever since.
Yeah, totally. I experienced that when I was there. It's
Mm-hmm.
such a great hub to be surrounded with people who are special expats, like community, the people, locals and expats. They are really nice to be around.
Yeah.
And like, what do you think Chiang Mai compared to the rest of Thailand?
Chiang Mai compared to the rest of Thailand. Well, I have to admit I'm not that well traveled in Thailand to be
Mm.
honest, but like Suratani, you know, where that's got Samui and got Phangan and got Thao all are in that little archipelago. Those are great places to visit as well. And the scene in Koh Phangan in KP is like really awesome. But a lot of the folks that I like, a lot of my friends and I joke that like the best time to be in KP is like when it's full of Chiang Mai people. You know, so it's like the same people, but we just go hang out in a different place. But it's smaller and like the vibe is slightly different because the venues, the beaches there, no one wears shoes, no, like people hardly wear clothing. It's just like a funny little like sort of like mental vibe shift. And so even though sometimes it's the same people, because it's also like smaller in like size location wise, you know, I think it means that there's a little bit more of connection. And maybe it's because like folks are moving around and so they're more open to like shift their mindset. Like those trips have always been super fun. Like I meet people, there's always events, activities going on, and of course they've got a really great like party music scene down there. I've never made it to a full moon festival, but I think people like it. I was recently speaking to someone who's trying to launch digital nomad events in Bangkok, and he's like, I feel like there's a lot of digital nomads here, but I don't know where they are and they don't hang out and the city's so big. And so I was trying to give him some tips for that because he was working with he's collaborating with this company that has a couple different like coffee shops and stuff in Bangkok. And I was like, just do this meetup, try a free co-working day. Because I think there's probably more digital nomads in Bangkok per capita because like, it's just so much bigger than anything else in Thailand. But the city is like a mega city, right? It's
Yeah,
like, you know, like New York or Tokyo, like the kind of thing that it just feels
huge.
like it goes
Yeah,
on forever.
yeah.
But everyone just stays in their neighborhood, right? Because it
Mhm.
takes like an hour to get anywhere and the traffic sucks. So I don't think there's the same like hotspots. You know, like it's a little bit harder to find the hubs. So I was just suggesting to him, like, hey, if you have many different coffee shops that these people own, just try doing a free co-working day and like every other week, like change the location and see where people come, and then you can sort of figure it out from there, right?
Yeah.
But kind of to that point of like nomads want to go where they know other nomads will be, like you have to send the signal first and then you can sort of maybe build on that. So yeah, I've spent some time in Bangkok, just like there, like the startup scene there is really awesome. So I know more about that than the digital nomad scene specifically. Phuket seems to be really like, it's a big city. It's really popular for many reasons. I still haven't made it out there, but
Oh,
There's like Homa and Selena have opened there now, like those
yeah,
co-living
yeah.
places. And so definitely seems that it's like growing in popularity for this community. So I'll, try to make it down there at some point this year.
Yeah, you have to. Yeah, it's a great scenery for many digital nomads out there, especially the
Yeah.
Rawai area where
You
near.
were there with your family?
Yeah. We were there. It's pretty beautiful vibe. It's very different. Like our
Yeah.
experiences between Chiang Mai and Phuket, quite different. You feel you are in a different country in a way because the vibe is
Mm.
different. We really liked Chiang Mai. That is very convenient compared to Bangkok or even Phuket,
Hmm.
because you can move around quite easily. Like
Yeah.
this
Not too big.
distances are really short. Yeah, this is definitely a plus for Chiang Mai, I would say, compared to other cities in Thailand. Awesome,
Well,
awesome.
yeah,
Yeah,
I'll take your advice on board. Rawai Phuket sometime.
yeah, for sure. I like the beaches, the vibe, this is nice that Chiang Mai have something else to offer. Can you tell us more about your projects? What are you working
My
on now?
project, what
Yeah,
I'm working on now.
yeah.
A lot. I do this to myself. I don't know why. It's
I'm
just
really
like so
excited
fun,
to
luckily,
hear from you
and like,
because I was following up like for a
yeah.
while now, and yeah, let's see where you at, and yeah, tell us about it.
Okay, so I think we'll start with like, how do I actually make money? Because I think sometimes people look at like digital nomad personalities and they're like, but what do you actually do? So my bread and butter is consulting for startups. I'm trying to sort of learn how to sort of shift my working model to, I think a lot of folks are doing this fractional thing where instead of being a full-time employee, they'll sort of take a pretty like senior position at a company, but like do that rather than having like one full-time job or like many consulting projects that are short term. They'll kind of like go in between those and have like long-term relationships with one company in a senior leadership strategy role, but not be doing that full time. So that's where I'm angling at, and I've got like one main client right now who are a really awesome startup doing augmented reality, which I never thought I could get into hardware because my expertise is like content and community building, but they're very community driven. It's like an open source project. And so I'm on board to help them sort of grow the community, attract developers, share their story. And so that's super fun. That keeps me busy. I'm also working with a startup that's in the digital nomad space right now. They really cool project called like a Nomad Nation. This guy Zach, I'm so impressed with because there's a lot of people who are going after that like subscription living model, just like pay a membership fee, get access to like many different places to live. I think that's the dream. But a lot of people, I don't know, it's a challenging thing to do. And his approach, I think, is unique. And I'm very interested to sort of get involved because they've actually built a pilot project. They're kind of going after like a real estate play. And I think that's kind of unique because a lot of the people who start these projects come from maybe like a software, very digital mindset. And that's great. But the thing is, when you're building something, you need a different skill set, right? So
Yeah.
I'm excited to lend him my expertise in communities, and but I'm really like, one of the things I love about like consulting with for people is I get to learn from them as well, and so I'm really excited to see like what he's done with his expertise in like real estate and like construction. So those are two things I'm working on, and that's like the stuff that actually pays me, which is great. Then I've got a couple different things going on. I've been obsessively writing this digital nomad visa white paper for the last couple months, but it's a project that has been in the works kind of for years. In like 2019, through the Chiang Mai Entrepreneurship Association, I got into like digital nomad visa advocacy, trying to make it happen for Thailand. I've had like what feels like 1,000 calls with like different people in different sides of the government who are kind of interested in like digital nomads if they can fit to their agenda, but it's never gone anywhere. And so I've sort of been frustrated with that, and I decided to sort of turn to the international community to see like, okay, if Thailand won't do this, what can I learn from others? How can I support this nomad visa advocacy like elsewhere in the world? And that's been really rewarding. I feel like I've learned a lot, And then I started having lots more calls, but like none of these were paid because they were just kind of like, let's support each other, let's see what can happen, you know? But that took a lot of time and energy to share that information. So I've decided like, I need to write it down. I need to make like a one-stop, like, you know, here's your starting guide. If you want to know about digital nomads, digital nomad visas, how to create policy to attract digital nomads and remote workers, like here are the things that you need to know. Because there's starting to be a lot of academic literature about digital nomads, but a lot of it's like written from like an outsider perspective, you know? So I kind of wanted to share from the inside what's going on. So that's taken up a lot of my time. And in support of that, I launched a remote mastermind, which you know about, of course, since you're a part of. But I don't know if other folks have ever joined masterminds, but I feel like they should be an important part of like digital nomad culture because so many folks are entrepreneurial or they're solopreneurs, and it gets hard. Like when you're creating something, it gets lonely, like you need support. And I love having this group of people who I can check in with, who are accountable to each other. We help set good goals. We give each other advice when we encounter obstacles. And so this is something that I put together with the help of like an internet friend, Alex, who like found on LinkedIn just because we liked each other's writing, and something I'm very keen to sort of keep going forward. And between the mastermind and this white paper, I'm kind of playing around with ideas for how I can grow a community of people who support the remote work lifestyle. You know, like how running remote is like this amazing conference for like anyone who like works remotely, right? If they have an awesome newsletter, they have an in-person like conference that meets like at least once a year, I think multiple times. They have like a Slack community. It's a really great supportive environment and like media company for remote work, like the work side of things. But I think on the lifestyle side of things, there's still kind of a gap in that support. And there's a lot of issues like digital nomad visas or like legislation around like midterm housing, you know, because like, you know, a lot of countries just like have rules that make it hard to have like Airbnb or to have co-living spaces. They're kind of a lot of like collective issues that like no one person or company, like it's not going to make sense for them to do it on their own. But that to move this lifestyle forward, especially because it's like a cross-border international thing, right? Like, I think we kind of need to come together as a collective to do that. So, you know, this project is like, I'm calling it Remote Commons. I'm not entirely sure what it's going to be, but yeah, I'm trying to sort of get that off the ground. That's the big stuff right now. There's always little side things.
There's a lot of things going on.
We don't mention them. That's enough for now.
Yeah, there's a lot of things. Really great. I love like everything that you are doing for the community and for the digital nomad. Amazing work, I think. And I've taken a look on what you're doing. Really great. Yeah, everyone who's watching this, definitely you have to check Lily's out. Yeah.
Fill out my survey. We'll add the link below.
Yeah, exactly. All the things that you're doing, how do you balance between everything you're doing and you said you have a baby? Is it how old is she?
She's 13 months. She just turned a year old very recently. Oh. Yeah.
Wow. So how do you balance? What's your secret?
You know, I feel like there is no secret. Like the secret is that like I'm still trying to figure it out, and I don't feel like I'm particularly good at it. But I think I share with you, you know, part of the reason I sort of went after this whole remote work thing and moved back to Thailand was that I really wanted to have a better work-life balance. Like being in startups, you know, when I was in New York, like I was working like 6 days a week. I'd go in the office Saturday all the time. We were expected to work like late, you know. It didn't matter if I had left work at like 5 o'clock or like 9 p.m. Like I was expected to be there at like 9 a.m. And I just knew that this was like destroying me. And the money I was earning was like the best money I'd ever made, but I was also like living in New York, and I was like, okay, my mental health is not good. Should I get a therapist? Can I afford a therapist? Like, wait a minute, like, why am I getting a therapist just so I can afford to live in New York? Like, none of those things made sense, right? And so in part, like moving back to Thailand was like, let's shake everything up and see if we can do this different. And the thing that made a huge difference for me was the lower cost of living, you know, because I had the option of working less. And fundamentally, that's one of the reasons that I still stay here, you know. I have at times earned really great money that I could have lived somewhere more expensive, but then that would have, like, I never wanted to get locked into the cost of living somewhere else, you know, because here, if I can be a little pickier about what projects I take or like don't take, because I'm not like so stressed, like I have to pay a mortgage, you know? So that's a really big thing. And then I've always been a workaholic, and that comes from like, you know, I'm in therapy, so there's like 1,000 different things that I'm working on to really like dig into that and unpack it. But on the practical side, how do you address that? How do you address being a workaholic? It's usually easier to add more of something good than it is to stop doing something bad, or like to have less of something bad, you know? So for me, I have to remember that I have other priorities in my life, like my family, my friends, my community, you know? So for a long time, you know, I would just work, and I would do nothing else. And then I remember this one conversation with my then boyfriend, now husband, you know, where he was just like, you're just gone. Like, you know, you just haven't been here. And I just remember like sitting down with myself and just being like, is my work really more important than him? Like, I was helping all these people out with my work, which made me feel like it was important, you know, but I'm helping people. But at the end of the day, I was like, okay, but these people that I'm helping, you know, like some of them pay me, some of them don't. Like, how am I choosing to spend my time? Do I really need to like make sure I'm impressing this person who's a complete stranger and like taking a call for free just because I want to help, rather than spending time with like the people who are important to me, you know? So I've had many wake-up calls like that to just stop and think about like what's actually important in my life. And now that I have a family, now that I have a child, like, oh my God, she is the most important thing. And she's been a real blessing, because I've had such a hard time with boundaries like my entire professional life. I just want to be helpful. I always just feel like, oh, but this has to be perfect. What's actually important? Like, do I need to get this thing done right now or not? Like, you can always do it later. So it's a challenge to just like figure out like how many hours there are in the day and like what I can actually achieve with that. But yeah, for me, it's been largely a trajectory of like getting better with like having boundaries and like addressing my like the underlying mental health issues that may be around like bad habits and workaholism, remembering what's important, which is mostly people in my life. And then third, also professionally figuring out how to go from, you know, trading time for money into more like higher like leveraged opportunities, you know, like if I sell my services like on an hourly basis and I'm completing tasks for someone, then there's an upper limit to what I can charge for that. But if I have really great experience and I know how to solve a particular problem that's really difficult to solve, and I can come in and I'm just like, I'm going to work with you to create this solution, then I can package that at a price point that's very different. And I can package that and sell that to a client without a fixed number of hours expected behind that. And to me, that's the big thing. And it's been work to sort of figure out how to sort of get to that tier professionally, for sure. Big difference in my life.
Sometimes it's difficult to really like figure it out, and it takes time. But once you did, it's really a blessing. Advices you'd like to give for everyone who want to become a remote worker, entrepreneurs, employees, or freelancers?
If there's just one piece of advice, I think make sure you have support. You know, you don't realize like there's really awesome things about like being adventurous, seeing the world, traveling, leaving your hometown and all that stuff. But when you leave your hometown, you may be leaving behind your friends, your family, your therapist, your schedule, your gym, the usual park, all these things that are kind of really fundamentally important to being like a healthy person, you know, and even leaving behind infrastructure, right? Because the logistics of like passport, visa, taxes, SIM card, where you're gonna live, like you take on all that extra burden. You really want to make sure that if you're gonna take on these challenges which is like can be really worth it. But these things are challenges. Make sure you have support. Make sure you have some backup, and some stability in your life. Like a piece of advice I think is like really great that I try to share on is that you can't have all the areas of your life be chaos. Like you either need like a steady partner, like romantic partner or good strong friendships, right? Or you need your job to be steady, or you need your location to be steady. Like don't make all three of those completely out of whack. Focus on getting at least one of those like stable, because you're going to need that stability in order to manage the rest of your life if you're trying to do this lifestyle. Make sure that you've got support. Make sure you have people who love you, who are going to check in on you. You check in on them, nurture those relationships, even if you're not seeing each other in person. And if you are a freelancer, if you're a solopreneur, you're an entrepreneur, make sure you have a support system there too. Because I'm a terrible employee, but the thing I miss about being at companies is having great teams. Because again, it can lead to like overwork, because if you are like a solo, then you think you need to do every one thing, so have other people that you work with so you can share the load, but also have people who can like support you and like give you advice, and so you don't feel like you're alone. Because sometimes just like the only solution you need is to hear that you're not the only person who's struggling, that you're doing something that is really, really hard, and it just helps to know that other people are having those same challenges. For me, like as a mom and as an entrepreneur, these are like, it's funny how similar it is, like the support that I need there. I don't need someone to fix my problems for me, but it just makes a tremendous difference just to know that I'm not the only one who's struggling.
Yeah, I agree with you. Definitely having a support system is, everyone needs that to be able to balance everything around them and move forward. Thank you, Lily, very much for your time. And I'm really happy we did this.
This is a fun convo.
Yeah, it was a really great hearing from you. Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone, for watching. And see you